Good Shabbos, everyone. As many of you know, Wendy and I just moved into our new home, an apartment building where even if a light bulb goes out, someone else comes and replaces it. We love it. But there are some drawbacks. For instance, when you put up your mezuzah, as we did with friends the other evening, you have to use two-sided tape instead of nails. Although I must say that even that has an advantage. For when you inadvertently affix your mezuzah upside down, which I did, it is easy to just pull it off and turn it right side up again. And what was inside that mezuzah that we so lovingly placed on our doorposts? Well, the text comes from our Torah portion this week, Ve'et Hanan, a text that is well known to all of us as the Shema, or the watchword of our faith. And why the Shema of all possible prayers for our doorposts? Well, when I work with Jews by choice, in preparation for their conversions to Judaism, I make sure that they are prepared to read and repeat the mikveh prayers, but when it comes to the Shema, I always require that they memorize it. After all, I often quip, if the security guard at El Al wants to know if you are really Jewish, the first thing she will do is ask you to recite the Shema. This year, our clergy and staff are working in teams, we call them triangles, to set our goals and objectives moving into the future. This past week, the worship triangle presented and asked us to state our own goals for worship. There were many offered, including mine, which was tachatim bakisot, or tuchuses in the seats. Coming out of COVID, I thought that that was important. But the word that kept coming up over and over again was connection. Connection to one another, to our holy community, and most profoundly, to God. Last week, as we dedicated the amazing Levkovsky Pavilion, I introduced the Misha Berach by mentioning a new theory of mine regarding prayer and healing. The idea is that our body, mind, and soul are inextricably linked to one another. And since God is one, as it teaches in the Shema this week, the breath of God, the Neshama, or soul that resides in you, is somehow connected to the breath of God that resides in me. For each of them is just a wisp of Ruach Elohim, the God of Genesis who hovered over the face of the earth. And I would suggest that God as Ruach is not only the very first, but arguably the most authentic God metaphor we have. After all, like God, we cannot touch the wind, but we can feel it. Like God, wind is powerful, and yet impossible to touch. Like God, the wind is a life-sustaining force, and yet our interactions with it are fleeting and impossible to grasp. And since the word neshama in Hebrew literally means breath, you can see why this is a particularly apt metaphor. When we die, our bodies return to the earth and thus become part of life again through grass and seeds and birds and bees. Similarly, the breath of God within us returns to the greater spiritual wind that animates our universe. And according to our colleague, Rabbi Larry Kushner, a favorite son of Detroit, the word for God in our Torah, Yud, He, Vav, He, should actually not be pronounced as Adonai, or Jehovah, or Yahweh, or even, as I like to teach, Yedwab. No, the word is made up completely of aspirants and vowels, and thus the actual pronunciation is Hua, like the sound of the wind. Furthermore, we learn from Rambam, you remember Rambam, Maimonides, the greatest rabbi who ever lived, except perhaps for Rabbi Loss. In any case, Maimonides teaches us that God has never spoken to anyone through words. Rather, God speaks through God language, which is connection, or as Buber terms them, I eternal thou moments. And if God is connected to my soul, and God is also connected to your soul, is it not logical and true that my soul can connect in some way to yours? So when my soul prays for your soul might hear that prayer, not with ears, but with feelings. And perhaps my connection to your soul is also a connection to your mind and even your ailing body, since they are all connected to one another. So, and here is a segue I promise you did not expect. Let's apply that theory of God connection, of soul connection, to war. At the conclusion of services a few weeks ago, our cantor sang a rousing rendition of Shalom Salam. Ojavo Shalom Aleinu, you all know it well. After services, a visitor to our congregation stopped me and asked incredulously, "Did I hear the word salam in services? Isn't that Arabic? Given what is going in the world, how could we spout Arabic from the bima?" I was a bit taken aback. And in many ways, this sermon is a response to that question. At this pivotal time in history, I know that all our prayers are focused on Israel and the looming threat against her. This is an existential moment, and we as a Jewish people must stand up and support our unfairly beleaguered homeland. But Golda Meir once said, when peace comes, we will perhaps in time be able to forgive the Arabs for killing our sons, but it will be harder for us to forgive them for having forced us to kill their sons. And given the violence of October 7th, I would add here emphatically, our daughters as well. Golda understood, you see, that although our first and foremost concern must be self-defense and the preservation of the Jewish state, we cannot lose our humanity in the process. For my soul is connected in some way to every innocent child who is hurt anywhere. Not only to those infant victims of October 7th, but to children who suffer in Gaza, in Ukraine, in Sudan. No child or innocent deserves what is happening to them. After all, what can a baby possibly have done wrong? And since our souls are connected in some way to theirs, can we not feel or at least empathize with their pain, while at the same time resisting the evil of their political overseers with all our might? Friends, we dearly hope that our Israeli brothers and sisters can feel the prayers that we are sending their way, that their minds, bodies, and souls are uplifted and heartened by our unified and undivided support here at Temple Israel. At the same time, we also search for a connection to all the souls of the universe, especially those who are in need of healing, wholeness, and safety. For as we learn in Psalm 23, the stone the builders rejected has become the chief cornerstone of the Holy Temple. And the way I see those words is that those who are downtrodden, excluded, forgotten, imperiled, must be the cornerstones of our prayer. Those poor, unfortunate stones whom the builder of the universe seems to have rejected in these most difficult of times. It is in that spirit that we continue to pray for a future of salam, pax, paz, spoki, mir, shanti, freedom, pace, peace, and of course, shalom for our people Israel and for all the people of the world. Kei nihi ratzon, may it be your will, O God, and let us say, Amen.